What can a Century 21 agent do for you? They explain the market, love a good barbie and never drink milk from the carton. They do your homework, your legwork and sometimes yard work. So invite one over. Century 21 agents. Smarter, bolder, faster.
Now we're going to jump to the Melbourne CBD office. We've got Charles Tarbey down there and he's going to share the latest property numbers from all around the country. Welcome, Charles.
G'day, gents. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Good to see you. What are you up to down in Melbourne?
Oh, just doing some work with the guys down here, just 2 hours south. So had a retreat to go over some of the new things for next year. Pretty basic stuff, but we had a nice time. Good
to see. Now let's jump into the auction clearance numbers and we'll pull up the graph as well.
Yeah, they're not too bad at all. Slightly up, actually, over this time last week, only by a small percentage. 63.8% was the national clearance rate. This time last year, it was 68.5. So the star this week was Melbourne, 69.5, followed by Canberra again. It's been in the top there for a few weeks at 66.1, and Sydney at 61%. So it's performed the worst out of all of the capital cities, based on what it has been doing for a very long time.
Now, both you mentioned it last week and Anthony's mentioned it this week, that a lot of what needs to be added into the numbers is what happens in the following week or two. And are you still getting the confidence that you think a lot of things are selling soon after auction?
Well, the clearance rates that we try to bring into it on today do include transactions that were negotiated after the auction. So we do bring a portion of that into it and probably a fair amount into it. But there will be still more that will sell over the next day or two. So they'll come under the overall clearance rate, Chris. But again, 63, 64, that sort of clearance rates aren't bad. I mean, we've been in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah, so that's good. Now, what property is coming on the market?
Yeah, that's been really strong for the last few weeks now. Another plus 1.45% this week over last week, and that was the same last week over the week before. New Zealand had a massive 8.7% increase in stock, mostly in the Auckland area where it's needed the most, and probably might take a little bit of hit out of the market there, but stock levels are climbing, and that's a really, really good thing.
Now, I had a friend of my wife's over from Auckland literally over the last weekend, and she was saying, we're talking about foreign buyers, and she was saying again is they're asking for 20% deposits over there, which is an absolute killer for the first home buyers, whereas the foreigners are the ones that probably have got the 20%.
Well, that's what they did to put in place to slow down the first home buyers in the New Zealand market, in the Auckland market, way back a year or so ago, and it really did have a negative impact. 20% deposit is incredibly hard for a lot of people to find, but even if they do find it, particularly here in Australia, if they can't quite get 20%, they're going to get slugged with mortgage insurance as well. So it's a very expensive exercise, whichever way you go at the moment.
And I believe they're potentially changing capital gains rules as well, so they're certainly hitting them hard in New Zealand.
There's a lot of activity around it. It usually happens, but quite often it happens well after the event that it's needed to impact on. As you know, the market's a lot of heat's coming out of the market across Australia because the stock levels are climbing. So it's always after the event these sorts of new rules come in. So we'll see how it plays out, I guess.
Very excited, Charles, in New Zealand, of course, after another World Cup victory, and I guess it's they're going to impose a new tax on capital gains tax. Now's a good time while everyone's happy, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. That's usually how they do it too, Anthony. I'm sure you're well aware of that.
OK, and now on to rent price movements.
Yeah, it looked great again, actually, up 0.43% for the New South Wales market, 0.22% for the Queensland market, and 0.42% for the Victorian market. So we've got an actual climb this week again. This is quite a few weeks in a row, at 0.24. So we're now actually 0.48. I'm sorry about all these percentages, but we're now 0.48% higher than we started at the start of the year. So rents have actually improved, not gone down. But of course, yields are a lot lower because prices are much higher.
That's all right. You're fine with all those numbers. We've got Anthony here. I mean, Charles would make an amazing accountant with the way he rattles those numbers off.
I was just falling asleep when I listened to some of those, but I'm coming back to life now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like the lunch we had, Anthony.
OK, and very quickly, the vacancy rate, Charles.
Yeah, look, Sydney's the best again, 2.95, followed by Melbourne at 3.75, and that's followed by Perth at 5.97. So that average is 4.22, which was exactly the same as this time last week, Chris.
Wonderful. Well, good to see you, Charles, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
See you, mate.